Well, there we have it. The deed is done. Elon Musk has purchased Twitter for rounding up, $44 billion. Almost $1 billion of that going to Jack Dorsey himself. I believe he had, he had what, like 2% left to change. I assume that Jack used to own a lot more of Twitter and has already sold it all off, but hey, $1 billion in cash, and now he gets to go, do all of his other businesses, that he's passionate about anyway, do his Bitcoin thing. I think he still has Cash App, and what was the other one? Square. That's Jack's company, too. So it worked out pretty darn well for him, and anybody else, I would think, who is a Twitter shareholder. Elon's paying them like $53.40. I think that was it, because they came back and accepted his original offer. I don't know what changed so much. They try to do the long drawn out thing where they're like, well, we're gonna go shop around and wait for other offers, and apparently nobody else made them an offer, and so they got their fiduciary duty to think about. If they just outright said, well, no, we don't want Elon buying the company because, he's an insurrectionist, white supremacist, they would be violating their fiduciary duty to their shareholders, and they could be liable for damages. What that could mean is that if, let's say, a shareholder in Twitter was mad that they didn't sell, because now, they could have gotten $53.40 a share, and I don't know, let's say the current price at the time that the suit is filed is like $40 a share or something. They could sue for that difference, I'm pretty sure is how this would work. And so they really didn't want to just, the board was not in a position to just stonewall Elon Musk. Yes, they could go out and say, hey, will anybody offer us more? But when that didn't happen, when nobody else wanted to buy Twitter, they had to sell. And so Elon didn't even have to go forward with the tender bid, which, for those of you who don't recall or didn't hear about this, after the board initially rejected his offer, Elon tweeted the lyrics, "Love Me Tender," with the little musical notes on either side of it, implying that he was singing. And it's obvious what he was referring to was making a tender or a tendered offer, whatever. I don't know the exact language behind it. But it's where, instead of going to the board and trying to buy the company, you go to each individual shareholder, you send them a letter and saying, hey, I'd like to buy your shares at X price. It's simple, it's straightforward, would have had the same effect. But, this was simpler. He was able to go through the board, they accepted his offer, he bought everything. He got it, 100%. It's going to be a private company. He's not just going to be a majority shareholder in a publicly traded company. No, Elon's going to be the whole owner of a private company. Now, I'm mostly very optimistic about this. There's one thing that makes me very nervous. I'm happy he tweeted out a statement saying, hey, we're going to make the algorithms open source. Free speech is essential. Twitter is the public square, and I think it's important, for society that we preserve this and that people can speak their minds and say what they want. But one thing that made me extremely nervous was him saying, we're going to win the war on bots and we're going to authenticate every human. And when I hear that, I hear everyone has to have a blue check mark. You have to send Twitter your driver's license so that they know exactly who you are and what you're tweeting, and anonymity will be dead. If that's the case, it'd be very hard for me to stay on Twitter, because then, obviously you're all traceable. There's nothing anonymous truly on the internet anyway. It's just, it's something that really rubs me the wrong way, and a lot of other people. It's just not something that I do. I don't do the kind of social media where, I'm plastering my identity everywhere. And so having to verify my identity with Twitter overtly is a bridge too far for me. I wouldn't do this YouTube channel if everybody could see my face and my name, my full name was the name of the channel, and, you all knew my address, which of course is, you'd say, well, no, nobody posts their address on YouTube. Well, that's one step removed. I mean, if you know my name, you know my face, a dedicated person will be able to very quickly find out where I live and come kill me if they want to. Now, is it impossible for somebody to track me down and come kill me the way things are right now? No, but there's a few more steps, a few more hoops that you'd have to jump through, and so you'd have to be an even more dedicated psychopath. And thankfully, since I've never been, and I'm sure never will be, particularly famous on the internet, the risk of a psychopath trying to hunt me down and kill me is not huge, but it's always there. That possibility, risks are never zero. But I try to minimize risks. I try and get those risks as low as possible. And when you consider the malicious content or conduct of Twitter employees have demonstrated in the past, as far as like going into people's DMs and spying on them, it's frightening to think that they would know my real identity and they would have my driver's license and all these things, and that I would be authenticated. Not because I'm so ashamed of everything I say. You don't have to be. Privacy is something that everyone values. You don't want people listening in on you 24 hours a day. And that's, almost what Elon is asking. At least that's what it feels like to me. Now, I hope maybe he stops short. Maybe, maybe there are people who can talk some sense into him and say, hey, if you try and verify every single account, or basically lock people's accounts if they refuse to verify, you're going to kill this site because there's, the blue checks are the tip of the Twitter iceberg. And then all of us anons, we make up the unwashed masses on Twitter. I mean, Twitter used to be so cringy to use your real name and your real face on Twitter. That's just not something that people used to do. That's why you had a handle. That was part of the fun. It was like, old CB radio. You didn't give your exact identity. It wasn't like Facebook. Facebook was so stupid. It was like, talk to people in real life, on the computer, and tell them, hey guys, I just took a shit, and excuse my vulgarity, and I was reading in the newspaper that there's this thing called Twitter. Seems like a cooler website. I think I'm gonna go over there. That's the kind of stuff that people post on Facebook. Always been dumb. I never liked it. Going all the way back to, gosh, when did I first hear of Facebook? A long, long time ago. So I don't want Twitter to move in that direction. And I don't think in his heart, I think that Elon's heart is in the right place. I do. But, part of his autism, I think, is that, well, what? I'm verified. Why can't everybody be verified? As if the average Twitter user would be able to speak as freely as Elon Musk does, being a billionaire, self-made man, with more FU money than anybody on the planet. Obviously, us normies would not have that same discretion. We would not be able to speak as freely or openly, and therefore, people would self-censor on Twitter. And some people don't have shame, sure, but I mean, there would be a lot of intelligent and insightful people who would be silenced by that lack of anonymity, because it has a chilling effect. And again, I know internet anonymity is always, you're wearing a glass mask when you're hiding behind an anime avi like I do, and or whatever kind of avatar you have. But it's still something. Yes, it's easy for that mask to shatter into a million pieces and for your real identity to be exposed. Everyone lives with that risk. But to have that little veil of, it's a security blanket. Think of it that way. Look at somebody like Libs of TikTok. Yes, she was exposed. And that's not something that you would want to happen. It is possible. But if she had known up front that she would be exposed, you think she ever would have started that account? Of course not. So, maybe I'm reading too much into Elon's statement about verifying all humans on Twitter. Maybe he just means like some kind of like CAPTCHA system to where you do something to confirm that you are a real person. But I doubt it is something that inoffensive, he's making such a big deal about it. I feel like it's going to be, you know, collecting our IDs, and then Twitter's going to keep those on file, and somebody within Twitter who wanted to screw with us, maybe didn't like what we had to say publicly, would then go, you know, internally expose our identity, and then perhaps, you know, leak it to some deadbeat journo like Taylor Lorenz. Because while there will be mass resignations at Twitter, I assure you, a lot of these horrible people are going to be left in that organization, and they will do terrible things to us given the chance. So with that said, you know, I am more optimistic than pessimistic about all this. I do think that Twitter potentially could get back to its great, you know, the great heights that it achieved, you know, from the time it was created to 2015, really. It was 2016 in the Trump election that changed everything for Twitter and made it terrible, and they started banning everyone. But so I do hope we go back to those days. I do think that that's what Elon has in mind. You know, he's old enough to remember the good old days. But let's hope that he doesn't get too carried away. I mean, the open source algorithm thing, that'll be interesting. I remember when Twitter wasn't an algorithm, and it was just the, you know, the direct feed, whoever you follow, you know, in chronological order. That's the way that Twitter was when I joined it. And then, of course, you know, there's the trends. That's always been a mystery. And now they have all these other, I mean, what did trends even mean for Twitter? I don't even know how you can look at, you know, just unadulterated Twitter trends, because they're, you know, the algorithm tries to personalize them for you, and they never, these days, they never seem to have anything interesting. I mean, I never check the, you know, the trending stuff, because it's just, I mean, maybe there's one topic on there that seems something, but I mean, it tries to give me like stupid celebrity crap, or, you know, hey, here's what's on TV tonight. Like, it, you know, it's just like feeding me corporate ads. But anyway, with all that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow. You know, there could be some rough patches in the future, but I think today we should probably celebrate that maybe not one of us, but somebody at least who is not one of them is now in charge of Twitter.